This video is part one of planning a woodworking project. I came across this project at Lowe's.com. This is for a chest of drawers. It has 5 drawers, and I'm going to base this tutorial off of this project. And so with every project, it always begins with a picture and some basic dimensions. So we have a series of pictures here so we can get a decent idea of what this looks like. We can see the face frame around here. Top on it, the drawers sit in front of the face frame. And if we take a look at the description, we can see that this project is 31.5 inches wide by 45.25 inches high by 16 inches deep. Now we are going to adapt some of these measurements here, and we're going to create a basic sketch of what we're wanting to build based off of these measurements. So I'm going to start with an overall box of 31.5 inches wide by 45.25 inches tall. And you can do this with graph paper as well, making every box equal 1 inch. I'm going to be doing this within AutoCAD to make it go a little bit faster. So taking a look at my project, I can see that I have a face frame running around the outside, and I have a little kick plate down here. I'm not a big fan of how that kick plate sits back a little bit, so we'll probably end up bringing that forward. Taking a look at the side, it almost looks like this face frame overhangs the side. I think that looks a little strange as well, so we'll bring that in and make it more boxy. Jump over here to AutoCAD. Start with 2-inch face frame on the left and right side. That 2-inch number is a pretty standard number. We'll also come down 2 inches as well. And my bottom kick plate piece, I think we'll come up 4 inches on that. And we want 5 drawers, and assuming I have 5 drawers, if I have face frame between those drawers, that would shrink the size of my drawer, and given the close proximity of all the drawer fronts, if I were to put face frame in between all of those, that would kind of be unnecessary. So we're going to map this out without that face frame, that additional face frame running in between there. I'm going to do my drawer fronts in a different colored layer so we can see that a little clearer. The drawer front typically has about a 1/2 inch overhang. So that would start right there. Down at the bottom, if we did a 1/2 inch overhang, that would start right there. We'll do a little math here and measure from this point up to this point. So that is 40¼ inches. So I have 5 drawers, but I also have a small gap between the drawers. I'm going to assume a 1/4 inch gap between the drawers. So I would have 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters. So that is 1 inch. So my overall measurement being 40.25, I'm going to minus 1 inch to account for the gap. That leaves me with 39.25 inches for 5 drawers. We can do a little math here and say 39.25 divided by 5 drawers. That leaves me a drawer front of 7.85 inches. We can map this out. And we get that lined up like so. Now, one thing that we did forget was the top of the project. We factored that in, but we forgot to account for that when we laid this out. So we need to make a couple decisions here. If we throw a couple dimensions on here, change the layer a little bit here to make it easier to decipher. Change our unit. There we go. So we know that the sides will be plywood, and a sheet of plywood is 8 feet long. If I want to try and make this project out of possibly a 1/2 sheet of plywood, then I know that my maximum height could be 48 inches for the plywood side, plus then I'd have a 3/4 inch top. So I'm going to tweak these measurements. So I'm going to go 47 1/4 And then I'm going to have a 3/4 inch top. Add my face frame like so, and I can pull a dimension. So I have a height of 48 inches. Now, next is the width. So my current width is 31.5, and a common measurement is 32 inches. So I think I am going to make this 32 inches. So I can pull a dimension on that. 32 inches. We'll do that 4-inch kick plate at the bottom. And we'll add our trim at the top, 2 inches. We'll recalculate these drawers then. So my distance is 41.25, but I have a 1/2 inch overhang on the bottom and a 1/2 inch overhang on the top. So that gives me 42.25. But I am still subtracting a 1/4 inch gap from each drawer, so I'm subtracting off that 1 inch, which puts me back to 41.25. Each drawer front, given that there's 5 of them, 41.25 divided by 5 gives me 8.25. So I got 8.25. My opening is 26. So I'm going to make this 27. Quarter inch apart. And I'm kind of liking the look of that just a little bit better. 48 tall, 32 wide is my overall measurements. So I'm going to ditch this other drawing. We're looking pretty good there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the depth of the project. So on Lowe's, which is where they sold this at, my depth was 16 inches. So we're going to box this out here. $16. And I'm going to account for the 1 inch overhang. So I'm going to come back 1 inch, then come down. And I also need to account for the face frame. So I'm going to bring this back for that face frame that is adhered to the front. We'll throw a couple dimensions on here. So overall, this ends up being 15. That is 14 and a half. But from the top is 16. Now, given that drawer slides come on even measurements, and I will have a back on this, which we may or may not have a back on it, because it will go up against a wall, so theoretically you would not need a back. But just in case you were putting a back, we will account for that. So we'll add another layer here. And let's assume that the back is going to come down to, we'll make it run to the very bottom, which normally you probably wouldn't do, but for the purpose of just laying this out, we'll put it in here. And we'll change the color on that to make it a little bit easier to see. There we go. So now, if we measure from the front of our face frame to that back, we have 14 3/4, which will easily accommodate a 14-inch drawer slide, which leaves us just a little bit of space in the back. So that's looking pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I think we have our project with our overall measurements. Height, width, depth. We have 2-inch wide face frame. We have our drawer fronts drawn up, which we'll add dimensions to as we progress through. We'll have to draw our drawer and lay that out as we plan all of the parts. But for a first step, I'd say we're looking pretty good. This project looks similar to the original project. The dimensions have changed, but the style essentially is the same. We did bump that little kick plate forward, and this kind of thing that looks a little strange where it overhangs the side substantially is we've kind of corrected that. So that's it for this first step anyways, just getting a rough drawing with some rough measurements and some different things to think about.